And then this. Okay. Okay, so the recordings have been started.
Yes, we do a sign-in sheet to go around?
Yes, we are. We're going to assign a sheet to go around. And so for the record, this is June the 25th, 2020. It is approximately 12:09 p.m. And we are here to, with the ATU local union to discuss the operational unit. We'll go around and say everyone's name. I'm Jana Still with Human Resources for the county.
Peyton Powell, clerk of court, payroll.
Lorraine Hudson, clerk of court.
Wesley Hall, County.
Debbie Bowers, county.
Wes Moreno, Public Works, Union County.
Jamie Higdon, Public Works, Camden County.
Jana Skilly, county.
Kristen Buell, county attorney's office.
Jim Stanton, ECAT, number 1395.
Steve Livings, fleet maintenance.
Mike Laurie, ATU.
Arlene Myers, ATU. And somebody's online.
Curtis Howard with ATU.
Michael Rhodes with Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, well that is everyone, and so we can go ahead and get started.
So, Curtis, if I can, you want me to start?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mike, please.
Sure. Keep my mask on because otherwise it's difficult to speak, so I'll keep a little distance here from everybody. So we reviewed your proposal on wages, Ms. Gilly. And so we do have a few questions, but we want to first say that it was a significant proposal. After we looked at numbers, we were happy to see some significant movement on the county side, so we want to first put that on the record, that we recognize that this was a move that we have been kind of lobbying for to bring wages to a level of industry standards in some of the classifications. So the first question that we wanted to ask was, after looking at your new starting rates, the first question we want to first clarify and make sure that we understood, and we understood from the previous negotiations, was this. Is it the county's position, if we were to implement these new rates, is it the county's position that any existing employees that are lower than these rates, what would happen to them? Would they be brought up to this new rate, at least to the base rate of the new current base rate, or would they be even some structure beyond that as far as wages?
So it's our understanding that every existing employee would go to the proposed base rate.
So if they're not already there, if they're higher than the proposed base rate,
Yeah,
they will
don't get
maintain what their salary. If they are not at the base rate, when it is implemented, they will be progressed to it or automatically put to that.
Okay, so they would be existing proposed rate, those below would be brought up to the base, correct? Is that, that's correct, right? What I say? Okay, so the next question is in regards to some of the intent also beyond this, because while we find that to be significant and that is something that we see very attractive for those employees that are affected by that, we obviously have other employees that won't be impacted by this. And I see your face when I said that. So is it the intent of the county to be addressing those individuals through these existing negotiations, or because we would counter to that? Or would it be discussed that the intent, the real intent of the county is to look at upcoming, for instance, we have the fall potential, another potential raise, or next year, to adjust those individuals as well based on their years of service. So is that to award them, to get them so they won't be on top of that base rate because of their years of service?
Years of service is not something that we have considered in this particular offer.
Okay, so years of service, not, okay. Is that my phone keeps going? I'm sorry if it is. Let me turn it on.
Are you asking that if the county employees get some kind of across the board, that they would also receive it?
So I guess, let me try to rephrase it a little bit. So there's individuals, based on this proposal here, would be rewarded because they would be brought up to this new base rate. There are employees that are already above that base rate and would not receive a wage increase because of this. Now, obviously, we recognize they received the 3% last October. The question that we're asking, though, is without looking at some of these numbers, we ran the numbers, some of those individuals will be just barely above that base rate with large amounts of years of service. And so that is concerning to us because we feel that they'll feel that that's not fair to them. So what we're looking to question you on, is it the intent to work on one section of the bargaining unit to get them to this level, and then potentially later, through negotiations, the next session, the next year, the next 2 years, or through the life of the contract, to then address those individuals to, now that we've got in our, and I'm using my words, not yours, we feel industry standard type wages, that we are going to then address those individuals so that they would be brought up and recognized for having 15 years of service, 20 years of service, things of that nature, depending on where their wage scale is, because we notice the numbers are kind of all over the place. And someone's texting me, let's see who that is. I'm sorry. Okay, so do you understand what my question is, or my statement?
Yes, so you're asking if those employees who are not impacted by this currently will reevaluate to assess an impact to give them some kind of increase?
Because ultimately, a ratification vote in the public sector involves the entire bargaining unit. So I wouldn't want this to fail at a ratification vote because they feel they're being, I don't want to use nasty words, but snubbed. And I wouldn't want that to happen. I want to be able to explain to them that this was the intent of both parties. This is where we're heading towards in the future. There is an obvious idea on both sides to reach a point where everyone feels like I'm at where I should be at. And I know that her response was that years of service were not considered in this proposal. But from our intent, we think years of service is important, and that is something that we want to ask you about, to say, because we're thinking through this to the end is what we're doing. And again, we thought that proposal was significant that you gave.
Thank you.
Okay? So another question, and I'm assuming you're going to answer or think
Yes, well,
about
we took notes to take into consideration what
Right.
you explained.
So the next question is, we reviewed the actual classifications and we looked at those. And we see some classifications based on, obviously you gave us a list of the status of some practices for recruitment and then retaining, right? I'll use the example, equipment operator 2, where I think you were 14 down, something like that, 14?
We're
25. 25 equipment operator 2's down. And we recognize that, and we understand that. And so,
There's
Yeah.
20 of those that are covered by the union.
Right.
There are 5 that are equipment operator 2 terms that are not covered by
Okay,
That's
20.
that's how we get.
From our perspective, it'd be 20, right? Okay, so we recognize some of the classifications will substantially benefit from this proposal, and would help the recruitment and retaining. But there's some classifications in here that caught our eye, and we were a little concerned about them, okay? And I'm not gonna go through each one, but I'll go through a couple of them for discussion. So we noticed, like, mosquito control, right? It's a small unit, doesn't have a lot of people, and we want to be able to communicate to them when we go to ratification at some point, to get them to understand, because the wage structure there is a little concerning there from our perspective. It's a small unit. I don't have the number written down. I have it written down, but it's, a small group. Fleet maintenance, the technicians. How many are in your unit? About 11, 12?
We're at probably about 12.
About 12. That one caught our eye, and because that one was based on being equivalent to like an equipment operator 2, where we really think it should be equivalent to an equipment operator 3 at minimum.
You're talking about the mosquito control?
No, I'm talking about fleet.
Yeah,
Okay, no, sorry.
I was just mentioning mosquito control being a small unit, that we didn't see a substantial increase in that base, that base pay. I mean, in here it says 1125, but when we looked at the actual wages of the individuals, it does give them a little bit of a bump up, but there are some that have some service there that it wouldn't even impact them, because they're above that mosquito control rate of 1454 is what you're offering. Some of them are over that, okay? Obviously, custodial workers caught our attention as well. Your base rate was 1020 to 1125. Every one of the custodial workers is over 1125. Not much further over, about $1 or so over. But they also have substantial years of service, all of them 20 plus years, which caught our eye, and thought that, it'd be hard to get them to feel good about what's happening here unless we had some kind of way to communicate to them that there's an intent to adjust. But with their case, a lot of them are on the back end of their careers. And so they're looking at this and saying, how long am I going to, be out there, right? And so just using them as the example, we noticed that equipment operators 4s, for instance, many of them are not going to be impacted by this at all, because many of them are over that base rate or right on top of that base rate, right? And so we want to be able to explain to them what is the intent, because if the base rate of an equipment operator 4, for example, is $21, if I'm making 21 and change right now as an equipment operator 4 with 15 years, 20 years of service or more, I'm going to be thinking, so a guy can be promoted up to equipment operator 4 with a lot less years of service, and he's going to make exactly what I make. So obviously you saw in our original proposal it was done by progression, and I know that your intent was not years of service, but you can, if you understand from our perspective of why we're asking these questions and the intent there, because we're going to be asked a lot of questions when the day comes when they attempt to ratify this contract, especially when it comes to wages. And in every labor negotiations, wages is probably the #1 issue that people look at. So, Curtis, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I want to add, Mr. Administrator, consider the question a little different for me. Years of service is a concern for the county, I understand. You made that clear. But there are a group of individuals that have been stagnated at the same rate of pay, besides a 3% increase, which is not substantial, through a 15-year career or better. Is it an opportunity here to give them a flat rate increase along with this base rate, because the base rate will not affect the majority of them? So is there an opportunity for us to look at certain crafts, as Mike just suggested, and say, well, we can bump them up, let's just say $1, or as a one-time bump up along with this base rate for the people who are not affected. Is that something that we can look at and consider? That would be something that would, I think, help the membership and your workers to feel a little bit better about some that are going to be bumped up $4, $5, $6 right off the jump. So I would ask that you consider that, and if so, then we have conversations around that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that is some of our initial concerns. And looking at the list that was provided to us, that list is, it really gets into an individual moment there when you start plugging in the numbers, and because you have to base it on their existing wage they have now. It's pretty easy to do those that are below the base, to move them up, because we can figure out if they went right to the base, they're gonna make this, that's their increase. With that thought of them going straight to the base. But it was the other folks that Curtis just talked about that are the concerns to us that we would like to have further discussions and to address that. As far as coming away, we feel like once we know your intent, or you're able to talk about this, that you could help us then move forward for us to offer a better count on wages. When we initially got this, obviously we had to run numbers. And when we finally got the updated list, we had an older list. We had to match and plug out, take names out, and do all that to figure out. And then when we got this list from Jenna, that helped us, because then we knew exactly who was in the bargaining unit, and we could run the numbers a little better. And so, but it's something that we need to think about. We would like to try, we feel that going through wages and getting through this process of the wages under your proposal and our original proposal that we gave you in January, that once we get beyond this issue, we think all other issues will come together a little faster at the table. Maybe another session or two, we could get real close to finalizing their contract. But this is something that's major for that unit. This is the biggest issue on there. So.
And that is understandable, and you've given us a lot to consider, so we will take that back and see what we can.
So do we want to take a caucus? Do you want to take a caucus to talk about what we just asked?
I think it's gonna take a lot more, because you saw how long it took to even get that spreadsheet. We're gonna have to look at some numbers on it, so it's gonna take a lot more work to kind of see if we can even put anything together. So what I would say is, we'll definitely consider it, and that will be a point to get back to y'all on.
So let me ask it a little different then. I guess what we're looking for is guidance from you, that you would say to us, we're open to this, we're open to that. Not saying you committed to it, but you're open to what we suggested here. You're open to this thought process that we're doing. That would help us, so that we could come back and provide you a proposal that we think would be better suited, that would, we wanted to come here today to tell you that when we ran the numbers on this, there were some smiles in the room, right? And, but then there were few in the room that weren't smiling, okay? And that, and that is concerning on our side of the table, that some are still sitting there going, yeah, I'm glad for my union brother or my union sister, but I'm not so happy for myself. And so we're trying we didn't want to bring a proposal to you today that we would put across the table that you're not even going to entertain. We want to know that you're open to this idea of the questions we just asked. And if so, we think we can relatively fast, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Yes.
Work on, and Arlene, work on those, and work on a proposal that we could present if we wanted to get back in the near future, again, pretty quickly. That would be something that maybe we're really close to. And then obviously we're ready, we want to we want to dive into those other articles, which I think, you know, again, with this unit, it's different than other units. I think this unit's been made it very clear for the past couple of years. What is their biggest concern?
So, it would be, I wouldn't be able to make a quick decision on this, also because we have several of our directors are not here that manage the departments that would be impacted by this. So I'd have to have conversations with them as well. So I'm not saying that we wouldn't consider it, but I have a large group of people that I have to have the conversation with because it impacts their budgets. And so we'd have to have those conversations with them.
Okay? Okay. So if we could take a caucus on our side, because I don't want to ask you another question without conferring with Curtis
Okay.
and Steve before I do
Do we
that.
have access to the,
Yes.
down there?
Yes, and I'm walking down there.
Okay.
So we will have a room.
Yes, y'all,
Yep.
we each have our, own
Okay.
conference.
Okay.
So if that's, I'll walk y'all down there and then I'll
Yeah.
leave y'all.
And then Curtis, I will call you on the phone. Oh, you're muted, Curtis.
Uh-oh, what's he saying?
You're muted.
Oh, I'm saying I'll log off and log back in
Yes,
so I
sir.
don't be in the same room listening to management.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So we sent you over a counter here, and Curtis, do you want to jump in with some thoughts of what you noticed, or how do we want to say it? Just as this is our counter?
I think this, as we said earlier, we wanted to try to adjust for some of the crafts that were not, that had people that wasn't seeing hardly any increase at all. And then others in the craft were getting a substantial amount. So we just came up with a flat dollar amount on some of the crafts. However, as we said earlier to you, Ms. Steele, we are open to leaving it with proposal and addressing the base as well for individuals.
Can you,
He wants you to repeat that, Curtis.
Curtis, would you mind repeating what you just said?
So earlier, when you were not here, we made a suggestion that some of the base rates that you guys offered were leaving out individuals to get hardly any increase, if any. And we were asking that the county consider dealing with just those individuals, because Mike had made a suggestion and asked a question about years of service. We understand that may be a problem for the county, so we said, okay, without years of service being a factor, but still, in order to ratify it and be fair to everyone, certain individuals wasn't getting any increases in the base rate or very little. So we are still open to dealing with the individuals if our counter is not something that you guys that you guys do not want to deal with. But we did not make changes to every classification. We only made changes to the classifications where we had concerns for the individuals, if that makes sense.
Did you get it?
Right. Okay.
Did they get it?
So we understand that you're probably going to have to run those numbers and look at them. And we think it would be a good moment here to look at another date to come back together for this operational unit to plan. So we don't want to run into the next unit's negotiating time.
Okay, when would you suggest is a sufficient amount of time to allow us to be able to do what we need to do?
Well, I've got budget hearings in the next 2 days, so I won't have time till the end of July. I mean, y'all can meet without me. I hate to always be a hold up for the calendar.
I was gonna say, because we have the budget here.
I have the.
All your negotiations are being canceled, right?
Well, yes. You mean I'm gonna be canceling?
There's no money.
Oh, yeah, well, I did, unfortunately, that's when the last week. Well, I have heard it.
Don't worry about it.
We're not gonna
Equity,
respond.
so equity is something that we are, we hear what you said on equity. Among classifications.
I think on our side, dates are not a problem. Curtis, do you might have,
What's that?
depending on what dates they offer? I don't know.
Right.
I think you're probably a little bit more open than you normally would be, but, so you'd probably want to wait, have them offer dates first, right?
Yeah, I would appreciate if they can offer dates, because it's harder for them to get their schedules synced together than it is for me.
3 days. that
2 hours is kind of not enough time. We'd like to see it.
I tell you, our staff, because we have a bunch of meetings, we have meetings the week of the 13th and the week of the 20th, because we have.
All right, what we'll do is we'll put our heads together and we'll give you some dates. We'll give you dates as soon as possible, but it's a very,
Maybe at the end of the ECAT session, maybe even? Or are you saying another day?
probably another day, because it sounds like everyone has some pretty complicated obligations over the next couple of weeks, because it's the budget
Yep.
cycle.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and take a break for a few minutes? I need to go back down to my truck and get my ECAP stuff. And then we'll come back and get ready to start with ECAP.
Sounds good.
And Curtis,
Yeah,
do you have another obligation you have to go to in here in 10 minutes, or are you free from that now?
hold on a second. Yeah, I have an emergency executive board meeting that was called outside of hours, so Mike will be leading the negotiations for us today
At ECAP?
at ECAT.
Okay.
I can't tell my boss that I can't be on his call.